Welcome to Kitchen Uncovered. I'm Chef Andrew Nicholson of the Culinary Institute of Canada. Today, outside, beautiful New London at Annie's Table Culinary Studio. We're out in the herb garden. Today we're getting ready for Thanksgiving dinner. We're going to deep fry turkey. So, the thing about deep fried turkey is when you normally do your roasted turkey, you've got basting and you've got aromatics in the oven to kind of add flavor. When you do the deep fried turkey, you don't get that chance to season it. So what we're going to do is we're going to soak the turkey in a brine. Now when you make a brine, it's a salt and sugar and water as your main ingredients, and you use about a 5 to 6% salt and sugar to the amount of water. So for 12 liters of water, we're using a cup and a half of sugar and salt each, so about 3 cups total going into it. You also want to make sure that you have a lot of aromatics. So we have some bay leaf, we have some garlic, and we have some roughly cut onions. Okay, and what we're going to do is that's going to add aromatics and that's going to add flavor and seasoning to your turkey. So to keep it simple, we're going to add our salt. Okay, you want to make sure you get all that in there. And to make this dissolve properly and you get the aromatics going and have your brine very stable and equal distributed, is you should always bring this to a boil. Okay, so once you get all your salts and sugars and aromatics in there, you bring the brine to a boil. Then you chill it, because you can't put your turkey into the hot oil, you'll start to poach it. So you want to make sure that you bring it to a boil, let it completely cool. Then you're going to take your defrosted turkey and you're going to set it into the brine and let it sit overnight for 24 hours. Okay? And as you go through the process of bringing this to a boil, it's going to become very clear because all of your sugars and salts are going to completely dissolve. So the aromatics will come out. We would put our turkey in this once it's boiled and cooled, and then put it in the refrigerator, wrapped, and let it sit for 24 hours. And it'll absorb all that flavor and all that seasoning into the meat. Okay? So we've already done that. And what we have over here is we have our brine turkey. Okay? So make sure that when you put your turkey in the brine that it's completely defrosted, because if there's any ice in the cavity of it, it's going to melt and dissolve and it's going to reduce the strength of your brine. So you should use a defrosted turkey. Okay? You never want to do deep fried turkey with a frozen or partially frozen turkey, just because it's dangerous and your water and oils don't mix. Okay? So after it's brined for 24 hours, your brine will have some traces of blood and stuff in it, so discard it completely. Make sure that you give the turkey a chance to really drain properly, because you don't want any brine left in the turkey cavity, because it's going to react with the hot oil again and you're going to have that boil over and possibly get burned. So make sure that it's really well drained. It's also a good idea to make sure that you take some paper towel and just dry off the skin in case there's any pockets in around it. Okay, and the excess fat that's on the turkey, don't worry about that so much, because it's going to cook off and just add more flavor. You want to make sure that you also get some paper towel into the cavity so that there's no pools of brine or anything inside that as well. Okay, so make sure that it's really well dried out. Okay, so we brined it for 24 hours, we've drained it, we've allowed it to sit. We have our pot of oil going. Okay, now when we talk about the oil levels, it's a good idea to make sure that you use the pot that you're going to deep fry the turkey in. You place the turkey in the pot and you fill it with water until the turkey is completely submerged. Then what you're going to do is you're going to remove the turkey, and whatever level that water is at as the pot is where you need your oil to be when you start, because when you dunk the turkey into the hot oil, you want it to displace just enough to totally submerge. So you do your test run. So you make sure that you do a measurement on the pot as to where your fill line is, and that's where you fill it up to the oil. Then you get the oil preheated to 350 degrees. Okay? Make sure that it's outside, it's safe from the kids, nobody's going to run into it, and that it's well protected, and you want to keep an eye on it for the duration. Now, how long do you deep fry turkey? You deep fry turkey for about 3 minutes per pound. So a 10-pound turkey is going to take 35 to 40 minutes because it's 3 minutes per pound plus an extra 5 to 10 minutes after that. And I always add an extra 10 just to make sure that it's cooked through. Okay, so a 10-pound turkey, about 35, 40 minutes in the deep fryer. So we take our turkey racker picker upper, right? We have this stainless steel. This will come with your deep fried turkey unit. Okay, this just keeps the turkey upright in the deep fryer so that it cooks more evenly. Okay, so when we do this, the cavity is empty, okay, because we want the fat to surround and cook the turkey from all sides. So we're not going to stuff it. We're going to show you a little bit later in the show how to make stuffing to go with this turkey because it's Thanksgiving. Everybody needs stuffing, right? So we're going to take the turkey. Oops, careful not to throw it on the ground. The foxes might get it. So neck side first, right through the center. My angle's a little off. There. Okay? So that's how we're going to cook it. Now we're going to take our wings and we're going to tuck them up underneath. Okay? To get them up out of the way. Okay? So you want to have it nice and tight. Right? You want to make sure that the turkey's sitting evenly on the hanger upper and you get a nice balance. And we're gently going to lower this in to the deep fryer. Okay, now for this purpose we've got a hanger. Okay, so this keeps your fingers out of the deep fat, and it's very careful that as you're doing this that you lower the turkey into the pot very slowly because you don't want the spatter up and you don't want to get a serious burn. So very slowly we're going to lower it into the fryer. We're just going to check our temperature, okay, because we want it at 350 degrees. So just double check the temperature of the oil. Make sure it's at 350 degrees before you start. Then you're going to take your hanger hook to your turkey picker upper, and we're going to very gently lower this into the deep fat. And you want to do this very slowly. Don't just drop it because it'll splash. So you want to make sure you do this very slowly. Okay. And just slowly lower him in. And then he should start the deep fry and get some serious bubbling action going on. Make sure it's completely submerged. If you had to top it up with a little bit of extra oil, there should be about an inch over the top of the turkey. Keep an eye on it for a couple of minutes to make sure that everything's cool and it's just kind of going to do its thing. Then we're going to put a lid on it. We're going to go into the kitchen and make some stuffing. So don't go away. Be right back. Welcome back to Kitchen Uncovered. I'm Chef Andrew Nicholson of the Culinary Institute of Canada. Today at Annie's Table Culinary Studio, beautiful New London, Prince Edward Island. Eric Palmer, graduate culinary student, is outside. Give me a hand today, keeping an eye on the deep fried turkey, which we have on the go. So, like I promised, we're going to come in and make some dressing. So the first thing we're going to do for the dressing is we're going to get a pot warmed up and we're going to sweat off some celery and onions. Okay? Now the way I like to make my dressing is summer savory, celery and onions, lots of butter, salt and pepper, some dried cranberries, okay, and some mashed potatoes mixed in there to give it a little bit extra moisture to kind of bind it together. And what we're going to do is, because the stuffing's not necessarily cooked in the turkey today because we're deep frying it, we're going to put it in a casserole dish and we're going to warm it up in the oven. Okay, so I got my pan working. And the onions or celery don't have to be cut to a specific size or shape, as long as they're all relative and mix into your dressing fairly easily, we're good to go. Okay? So I'm just going to quickly cut this up while the pan warms up. I don't want them too big, but we want to make sure that they're all relatively the same size so they all cook at the same pace. Okay, so we're going to start with a little bit of butter. See how the temperature's doing. The butter browns a little bit, that's okay, but you want to get the celery and onions in there. Now you don't want to add, if a little bit of caramelization or color happens on this, don't necessarily worry about it. But the idea is to get it sweating in order to have to have it sweating so that you get the flavors, not necessarily the color. But the color won't hurt a little bit. Okay? And we're just going to let that set and saute until they're translucent and soft. And at this point, we're going to use, if you have fresh summer savory, it works, but I like to use the dried because it's a little bit easier to get a handle on. Put this in early so that the oils of the dried summer savory have a chance to really loosen up and blend into the flavor of the celery and the onions. So mix that in there, and you might want to add more of that as you go, depending on how much you like summer savory in your dressing. But for right now, we're just going to add it in there to add some more flavor and get some scents going in the kitchen. I'm going to switch that burner out to that one, and while that's sweating, we're going to get our cranberry sauce on the go. So we're going to do a very quick, old-style, fresh. My mom used to make cranberry dressing, and what we're going to do is take fresh cranberries if you have them, frozen if you don't, doesn't really matter. We're going to throw them into a pot. Okay, no extra water because we're just going to use the natural juices from the cranberry, and we're going to take some orange. So any old orange will do. And we're going to leave the rind on them. Just make sure that the stickers are off, and you give them a wash in cold water. And the rind is going to give it a little bit of tartness, and the sweetness of the orange juice will counterbalance with the cranberries and give you just a little extra scent and flavor on your cranberry sauce. And it'll cook off in the cranberries well. I'm getting a little hot in there. Okay, then we're going to add some sugar. About a cup of sugar. Okay. So I'm starting to get a little bit of color on there, so I want to turn this way down low just for a few minutes just to get it to sweat. We're going to take a wooden spoon and stir up our cranberry and oranges, and we're just going to let that start. Just let that sit and simmer. That can be kind of forgotten on the side of the stove. I'm going to throw a lot more butter into my mixture here because I want it nice and buttery because I have to moisten up my bread. So I'm almost going to use half a pound of butter. I'm going to let that melt into our onions, and then we'll pour that over our bread and make our dressing in a few minutes. Okay, now we're going to make tarte tatin. Okay, now tarte tatin is a very classical apple pie, and the secret about the apple pie tarte tatin is the apples. It's actually inverted. So in our cast iron pan, we're lucky enough to have cast iron going on. We're going to heat it up. We're going to caramelize a little bit of brown sugar in some butter. Of course, who doesn't like butter? So throw some butter in there. We're going to get that melting. And then we're going to caramelize some Granny Smith apples, right, which we have on the go. You can use McIntosh, Cortland's, you can use Honeycrisp, whatever kind of apples you want. But in this particular instance, the Granny Smiths kind of give a little bit of tartness to the mix. So we have those pre-sliced. Kind of want to leave them whole so I have a presentation on the tarte tatin when it's done. Leave the skins on, and we're going to place them. They're just in acidulated water, just a bowl of water with a little bit of lemon juice in there so that they don't brown off while we're waiting for the butter to melt and everything to kind of come together and happen. And then we're going to get the butter melted. Okay, now we're going to add a little bit of brown sugar. And I basically want to caramelize the brown sugar before I put in the apples. We want lots of butter in there, and we want this to caramelize. Then we're going to add the apples to it. And you can put some cranberries in there if you want for some extra color. But we're going to stick with the apples today. Okay, so we got lots of butter in our onions. We're just going to throw our bread in a mixing bowl. We're going to pour this all over, and this is going to be hot. So you want to make sure that you give it a chance to cool down before you work your hands in there. We're going to add our craisins to this. And we're going to mix in some mashed potatoes to bind it up. Now once that cools down, we're going to get our hands in there and really mix it together. We're going to let that sit for a few minutes. Our brown sugar is starting to caramelize, so you want nice even spread of the butter and the brown sugar. We have some spices, so we have some cinnamon, some nutmeg, and some allspice. And we're going to add that to our sugar mixture to kind of get some flavor going on. And by adding the cinnamon and this to the butter mixture, you kind of get it spread out throughout the apples, and it really caramelizes. And then when you turn it out upside down, it's going to have the flavors going all the way through the whole pie. A little bit of water out of them, it's not going to hurt. Okay, we just want to make sure that we line them up. Doesn't have to be perfect, as long as they're evenly spread around. You want to leave them all in there. And it's a good idea if you give it a chance to really kind of start bubbling before you throw it in the oven. Your oven's preheated to 325. And you're just going to bake it long enough for the pie dough to finish cooking. Okay, so just a very simple pie dough. You can use puff pastry if you want to. You can use normal pie dough. It's completely up to yourself. Just make it ahead of time. Have it in the fridge, relaxing, and you just want to roll it out fairly thin so you get a nice crust. And remember, this is going to be the base of the tart. So when you roll it out, okay, a little bit extra flour. Flour go. Okay, I'm going to get this rolled out, get the tart tatin in the oven. I'm going to go check on Eric to see how the turkey's doing. I come right back. We'll be serving up Thanksgiving dinner. Don't go away. Welcome back to Kitchen Uncovered. I'm Chef Andrew Nicholson of the Culinary Institute of Canada. Today we're at Annie's Table Culinary Studio in New London, Prince Edward Island. Today we're doing deep fried turkey for Thanksgiving dinner. So we have Eric Palmer was outside taking care of the turkey while we were doing our dressing and our tart tatin. So our turkey is now done, 45 minutes. Give it a chance to rest. Even when you do your roast turkey at home, after it's cooked, make sure you bring it out and put it on the counter and just let the turkey rest for about 20 minutes to let it relax and the juices relax because it's been working hard and it needs to be ready to eat. So let it rest. Now we have our brown, what we're going to do for garnish for this today is we're going to do a brown butter smashed potato. Okay, so boil your potatoes just like you would at home, where you left the skins on. And the only difference is we're going to season them with a little bit of salt and pepper and some brown butter. Okay, so your potato masher, and like I said, with the skins on, we have our brown butter, and it's just till the milk solids in the butter start to turn a little bit brown, they get that hazelnut flavor. Right, we're going to pour that in the potatoes. Very buttery, so you don't need, you can add extra cream to this if you so wish to, but you're going to have very creamy, buttery potatoes by just adding, and I had about a half a pound or cup of butter going into these potatoes. Okay, so it should be lots. I'm going to season with just a little bit of salt and pepper. That way you don't have to have as much on the table and your guests don't have to add it when they get there. Stir that in. And they're smashed, so you have the skins included. I'm just going to set that over on the side. Now, the other thing we have in our go is we have our tart tatin. Okay, so I'm just going to put the potatoes on the table. Because what's turkey dinner without mashed potatoes, right? Eric, I'll get you to grab those if you don't mind. So now we're going to grab our tart tatin out of the oven. So our tarte tatin, we caramelized the brown sugar with the spices. Then we added our apples. Then we put on the crust, and we just tucked the crust around the edge just to make a little bit of a wall. We're going to let this rest for about 5 minutes until the sugar stops boiling, because we're going to flip this out of the pan onto a plate, and you want to make sure that you don't have boiling sugar going onto the pan or onto your skin. So be very careful. Just let it sit and relax for a minute to calm down and relax, right? Our cranberry sauce that we made with the oranges has just kind of been simmering on the stove. We didn't add any liquid to it. We just had the cranberries, the orange that we chunked up, and the cup of sugar. So just a nice little bit of tartness from the orange. And that'll garnish up our turkey dinner. So we'll put that over on the side. Okay? Now, we also had our stuffing that we made, and we mixed that together. So during the break, we let the onions and the celery and the butter cool down so that we could handle it, and we had the mashed potatoes in there to bind it. So then we mashed it all together with our hands. We placed it in the casserole dish and heated it up in the stove. We also add some dried cranberries into that to add a little bit extra flavor to the dinner. So now your stuffing is ready, your potatoes. We have some grilled corn and green beans. Eric Palmer did those up for us. Very nice on the grill while he was watching the turkey outside. He needed something to do, right? Then we have our tarte tatin, okay? So what you want for the tarte tatin when you unmold this is a nice big plate that it's all going to fit on, okay? Because you need to make sure that the juices and all the caramel, and that's part of the sauce and the beauty that goes with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a rubber spatula, and we're just going to go around the outside edge and just make sure that the crust is loose, okay? So this is right out of the oven. It stopped bubbling. So we're going to invert it very quickly. Flip it upside down. Okay? And then let it come up. Okay? So your tarte tatin is now on the plate. Now this is ready to serve. You can let this cool, or you can, if you wanted to do ahead of time, you could flash it in the oven just before service, because it's going to caramelize fairly hard on the plate. We're going to portion it up, and we're going to serve this with a nice vanilla ice cream. And there's lots of sauce and caramel with the spices in the tatin itself. And we're just going to put this onto the plate. Eric, do you mind grabbing the ice cream for me? Okay. To make life simpler, we pre-scoop this. Ice cream right on there. That'll melt in, and then you have really nice cake. So remember, when you're doing your deep fried turkey, that it's a matter of having the temperature 350 degrees and keeping an eye on it, and make sure that there's no traffic flow, but make sure you've got somebody standing there just kind of watching it, hovering over it so that nothing happens and nobody gets scalded or burned. Your cranberry sauce, your mashed potatoes have got lots of flavor. Our dressing is ready to go, and we have dessert, and looks like turkey dinner's ready. So happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for joining us in Kitchen Uncovered. I'm Chef Andrew Nicholson of Culinary Institute of Canada, Annie's Table Culinary Studio. Check out our website, kitchenuncovered.com. See you next time.